Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about a Linux project, such as a distribution, a desktop environment, or could be an application. We also chat about news or any variety of topics from the community. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the openSUSE project. And with me today, I have Eris, he's back, White Chocolate, Ben, Penguin Revolution, who has been missing. I think we put it on APB out for you. You've been gone so long. Servan, Jinda, Dale, and Mr. O. Wint. So welcome all. Very excited to have you. We were down last week. We were down to Cubicle Nate last week, actually. So how is everybody?
Been good.
We're good.
Excellent. I'm so glad you made it. It's the first weekend in December, and just as a note, we won't be having a Linux Saloon on the 24th or 31st of December. That means we have 2 more shows left this year, and then it's Happy New Year, and then we'll start up back again in January. So coming up today, we've got our open mic night. We'll get into the news, and then we'll close it out. But before that, Jinda, you have been doing something very interesting, something I haven't tried or attempted in years when it was much more simple. You are running Android apps, or at least attempting to, in Linux. Let's go ahead and just kind of skip on forward here. And we'll bring up Jinda's running Android apps in Linux. So, Eris, you did a straw poll. About a couple of straw polls.
Yes.
One about you have a mechanical keyboard, and the other
one I did a follow up because we had extra time because we weren't live last week, so I did a follow up. How many mechanical keyboards do you have?
You have not. You haven't had a chance to vote. Ooh, I can hear. Did I hear Jinda?
Did you?
I did.
Hey,
yes.
we can hear
Oh my
him.
God! Rebooting it worked.
Who'd have thought? So
Who'd have thought of that?
We'll get to you right after we finish up the straw poll,
Sweet.
and then So we'll just move that down, and we're good to go.
So
all right.
The first poll was do you own a mechanical keyboard? And 62% said yes, 37 said no. And then I put how many keyboards do you own? Since we have more time, it was a better poll that way. Somebody I think Leo suggested that how many keyboards people had. And the number one answer was 0 with 31%.
Weird.
Yeah. I think not everybody voted from the other poll on this one. And then number 2 answer was two keyboards. That's 18%. And then there was 1 keyboard that was 12%. And then 3 keyboards, 12%. 4 keyboards, 12% again. 6 keyboards, 6%. And more than 10, 6%.
So I put my my name under 3, but I don't know if my Model F keyboard, if that actually qualified or not. But
I think that qualifies. Even though technically it's like there are like
it's a buckled spring.
It's a memory keyboard, but it has the click.
It's a buckled spring keyboard is what it is.
Yeah.
So it's the pinnacle of obnoxiousness, I think, when it comes to keyboards, because it every time it sounds like you're busting a spring, ting 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 ting. You know what I'm talking about? Dale knows what I'm talking about. He's probably typed his term paper on a Model F keyboard.
Some people differentiate that between like a Cherry MX and let's say the Model M's, but I think it's a mechanical, even though it's a little bit different. I just think that maybe like a keyboard's not, even though it has like scissor switches. I don't think that counts as a mechanical keyboard unless you have one of those unique laptops that actually have like Cherry MX or compatible switches. Then I think that actually qualifies as a mechanical keyboard. But other than that, and probably like the old IBM tanks. Those, they have a lot of travel compared to like modern IBMs. I think those should qualify probably as a mechanical keyboard probably.
Yeah, the first mechanical keyboard I ever got was when I built my Commodore 64 Imposter. And then I've been working on a project with my daughter to build a computer. It's called the Callisto 2. I've shared some pictures in the Telegram, and that has a mechanical keyboard, and it is such a nice mechanical keyboard that I want to use her computer now. It was the 3D printed computer. Looks like an old terminal, and the keyboard on it is just absolutely fantastic. It has all these different little modes here for the like RGB vomit, and because it's hers and she wants everything pink, I'm leaving it. But the setting she has it right now is when you hit the key, like has like this effect where it like shoots across the keyboard. I really like it, and it's fun to use like in a dark room. So who here has a mechanical keyboard they use on a regular basis?
I do.
Yeah. What is it? Cherry, the blue cherry switches?
I have browns and silent reds. Silent reds is what I usually use.
Okay. And so what is it? Do you like silent red just for the purpose of being silent, or
I
how
got
it feels?
complaints from my browns. They were too loud apparently. So I switched over to silent reds. It's totally different because with the browns there's like a physical click you can feel,
Mhm.
and obviously the little bit of noise. And but the silent reds are linear, so you don't actually feel when you hit it. You just have to like estimate it, I guess, or just notice it when you actually type it. It's kind of hard getting used to it at first
Hmm.
because if you go from one that has like the little click to non-click, it takes some used to, because it's kind of hard to get used to it at first.
Yeah, I understand that. When I went to the blue switch, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was the perfect resistance, and the feedback was just to me absolutely fantastic. The only problem with it is it's not really good for when I do recording. So like doing Linux Saloon, although I'm using it, and also Linux out loud, it's probably not the best keyboard to use. But I try to mute myself, which is why people have to say, "Nate, you're muted," a lot.
There's a lot of variations you can do with the switches. Obviously, there's like the blues and the browns, which probably are like the most popular ones. And there's also like different colors for the Cherry MX that have like different weights to them. Like
Mhm.
if when you press down on the keys, you press down really hard. You may want one that has like you need more pressure for it to work, so that way you don't misclick.
Right.
And even if you go into exotic switches, they're very different, like Alps and all these hard to find switches sometimes. And it's like big giant rabbit hole if you ever go down like all the switches that you can possibly like find in the wild.
How does a blue sound and feel versus a wait? How does a brown differ from a blue? Is what I want to know.
The blues are a little bit louder.
Okay.
The browns are a little bit quieter. The blue has like a high pitched tone, like
Hmm.
the click, and the brown is more muddled.
Okay.
But you do feel you with both you feel the click also.
Gotcha. The System 76 keyboard, that fancy one they have. Do we know
The
is it
launch,
the
I
launch
think
keyboard? Yeah. Is that blue switch in that one?
I think you can pick it. I'm not remember exactly.
Okay. Matt, do you have any mechanical keyboards? Are you a mechanical keyboard guy? Do you even care?
I got a couple, mostly red switches, just because little tactile feedback, but a little quieter
Okay.
from my experience. So, and for gaming and all that stuff, when you're WSAD the entire time, the last thing you want to hear is high pitch stuff after a while.
Oh, really? Okay. I guess I've never been bothered by the clicky sound. I just associate it with like old computers for the longest time, and then it's only like in the last few years that I realized people like mechanical keyboards.
You associate old new technology with old things. I am shocked.
Yeah, I don't even know why I said that. So there we go.
If me directing you to the C64 imposter shell was not an indication of that.
So I just checked the launch keyboard comes in 4 switches you can get. One of the default one is Kale Box Jade switches, and you can get Kale Box Royal switches, Kale Box Silent Pink switches, and Kale Box Silent Brown switches.
Hmm.
Those are the 4 options you can get.
Actually, I could. I wish I could remember which switch it was that I actually got to mess with that. at Southeast Linux Fest. Well, cool. Does anybody else have anything on mechanical keyboards before we move on? White chocolate?
No, definitely not.
Okay. We can say something, Scrap?
Oh, my bad.
Go ahead.
Must be a delay on mine. No, I have a mechanical ASIO with the blue switches, and it's okay when I'm sitting here. I have my headphones on and nobody's listening on a mic, but sometimes even the blue switch, they can get through the gate on the microphone. But since I've been on the laptop, I'm telling you, like, don't sleep on the Logitech wireless K400s. Like, it's just the only thing I miss with this is the number pad. That's literally the only thing I miss on it. Like, if I had to go to another mechanical keyboard though, I would be okay with a 60%. But if I'm not doing the budget, I don't miss the number pad. That's it.
So I have a Bluetooth number pad that I use with my laptop, and I like it that it's a separate unit because there are some things that I do that I actually want it on my, this might sound weird, but actually I want it on my left hand as opposed to my right hand while I'm doing stuff with the mouse. Like there's some, like I'm punching in numbers, I do some web maintenance stuff, and so I'm putting in, I'm basically feeding a lot of data. It's actually easier for me to go to click, punch the numbers, click, punch the numbers, click, punch in the numbers, because there's no quick key combination to get to the field that I want. So I learned to use the number pad with my left hand instead.
Neat.
All right, well, very cool. Oh, and Bill has snuck in through the doors. I hope the swinging doors didn't hit him on the backside while he was trying to come in undetected on the squeaky floors.
And the bills always creep up on you at the beginning of the month, don't they?
Yeah, they do. That'd be a nice sound effect actually. Every time someone came in, if it sounded like creaking floor, like walking into a saloon, I would enjoy that.
A creaking door, like
Yeah,
like the swinging doors from a saloon.
yeah. I think Back to the Future 3 is what I think, because that's just what I think about when it comes to saloons.
That big reverb and the boots going
Yep.
with a little spur jingle in there.
Right, exactly. That'd be fun. All right, let's move on to Jinda.
Oh,
You
no,
said-
not this again.
Yeah, well, your mic is working, so let's we'll strike while the iron's hot, as it were, before the mic decides it wants to go on vacation again.
Well, when I buy a $38 webcam, this is the issue, right?
I mean, I'm not gonna point fingers. I'm not gonna point fingers. That's not my role.
All right, so for some strange reason, I decided to try to see if I could run Android applications and go through the list a mile long of ways to do it.
Cool.
And so, I put the link in, you guys can check it out in the chat. And I ran through a bunch of them. There's the first one's called Handbox, and it works fine, except for it doesn't like MX Linux because there's a module that's missing in the kernel or something, and I haven't figured out a workaround to get it to work with MX Linux.
Okay.
But I did try it in Ubuntu and it did work. I tried that one. There was another one on the list that looked like it was non-free, so I just skipped that one. I tried Android x86 and I tried Bliss OS. Bliss OS was really actually kind of nice. The Android 86 one, when I set up my VirtualBox with that one, it was really it seemed like a very old version of Android. I think the Bliss OS one I could see wanting. The other one just seemed too old. Another thing that came on the list was called Arc Welder. Evidently, there was an add-on or some kind of extension for Chrome, the browser, but it looks like it's been never updated and doesn't work very well and wasn't available anymore really in the the Chrome Play Store or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
There was the last one I didn't try. They have another one that's supposed to work with the Chrome web browser. I haven't tried that one yet. That's where I stopped because I was trying to get Handbox to work on MX Linux to see if I could, just for the challenge. But I couldn't get it to work. But that was the last one where I stopped. And I have a couple questions. Does anybody know a better way to do it? Or this is the way to do it? Or it can't be done? Please tell me.
So what was the most successful one that you had before?
If you wanted to try one right out of the box, download Bliss OS and you can run it right in VirtualBox and it works
Okay.
great. No issues
This is-
whatsoever.
This is running Bliss OS.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really, Bliss OS is really nice. I mean, top notch nice.
Did
Uh,
you get the Google Play Store to work with it?
Yeah, I could have sworn I did.
Oh, because I was having a major challenge with that.
I don't know if I saved my VM because what happened was I built my own I did another hard drive and started trying this stuff out because I didn't want to kill it. I only screw up my other computer, not my main one, and my sound went out anyway.
Me, I've only used Anbox, which I find it varies from distribution to distribution on the implementation of it works spottedly. But
Mhm.
then I've also but in VirtualBox, I've used Bliss OS and Android x64. And Android x64, I don't think has been updated for like 3 years.
Okay.
So, but Bliss OS is like Android 11, I think now,
Mhm.
or 12 now. So if you're definitely going to do it, I'd definitely say Bliss OS is the best. And I've been thinking about like converting one of my tablets to it as well, because I have one tablet that's about 5 years old that's out of support. So I need to actually update that.
So I think the one that I am most familiar with, actually, I can't remember what it was, and it's been about 5 or 6 years since I cared to run an Android app in Linux, and I noodled around the idea of maybe doing it again, but I thought Anbox is the one I used. But whatever I used previously, it all happened in the Chrome browser, so I could actually install the app in the Chrome browser, and it would be like a Chrome app. I'd install the APK. There's some method of doing that.
Well,
I don't think it's supported
yeah,
anymore.
like the Chromium browser or the Chrome browser, either one, you can actually install the Chrome OS apps and they will run inside the Chromium browser.
No, I was running the
I-
Android app. There was
Oh,
some
really?
kind of a
Android?
yeah. There's some method.
Well,
That's
there was one
interesting.
called Arc Welder, but that one's kind of dead. Now they got a new one called Archon or something. That was the last one I didn't try yet.
Okay, Swift, you have your hand up.
Whoa,
Being so
yeah.
being unusually polite. It's probably not necessary.
Okay. So in that regard, I've used BlueStacks before, and I used that on a really old laptop, and that was slow as molasses. Oh my goodness. So I'm not sure if that would work better on a newer machine that has more power to it, because I was using it on a machine that had either 2 gigs or 4 gigs of RAM. It was like a Core 2 Duo, so not a whole lot of push there anyway, but you might get better results with something better.
Well, the thing about emulators is you're running basically two or three operating systems on top of it, and generally it eats up your CPU like nothing else. So generally, like you'll have to have at least 4 cores to run an emulator. Same with virtual machines as well, but yeah, you need at least 4 cores to do it.
You know, there's something fun about trying to drive a fast car or slow car fast, Penguin. So if you want to try and crank up an old machine, see if you can melt the thermal paste right off of it. So Jinda, it was Archon is one that I used. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's the one I haven't tried yet.
Okay.
That's the last one on my list.
Yeah, so you have to download an APK into it. Yeah, that's what it was. There was I was testing a washing machine for a previous employer of mine, and they had an app only for Android or iOS, and so I didn't like using my phone. I still don't. In fact, I don't even know what I did with it. Don't try and call me. I was able to run that app in Chrome at the time, and that was on my Dell D630. So if that gives you an indication of how long ago that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ran great little machine.
I got a Dell 610.
Do ya? I know those D series machines, I think were just fantastic.
Yeah, you took it back with that one. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, cool. So, hey, I guess Jinda,
Yeah.
maybe try that Archon out, see how that works.
Yeah. I
And
will.
and maybe what I'll do is I'll give that a try too. See if I can muddle my way through that and take some notes this time. Oh, cool. All right, so the topic that Jinda you helped inspire then that I guess we're going to look at now is Pipewire. How's it working for you? So now that Ubuntu has moved to Pipewire, I think are there any major distributions that are still using Pulse as the primary? Probably MX Linux is still using Pulse.
No, I think they switched to Pipe.
Oh, they switched to Pipewire also?
I think so.
Do we know?
Debian's still on Pulse Audio until the next release, which is probably going to come out next year.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are the Pulse Audio developers, are they upset about this? Do we know? Are they upset of the change, or they just kind of merge into Pipewire development?
Yeah, as far as I know, if you just use Pulse Audio normally and don't use like Jack, everything should work out pretty good with Pipewire. It's only if you try to do the Jack things that there might be some issues still.
On Ubuntu? Or in general?
In general, in Pipewire. Some other issues with still unfixed, but for the most part, I hear that Pipewire just is a replacement for Pulse Audio. Even though it is Pulse Audio, it's like a drop-in replacement, but you know what I mean.
Mhm.
It should work pretty good.
As like, I think it uses some components of Pulse Audio and Jack underneath the hood. So to see how it is packaged, so Pipewire is there, but there's Pipewire Pulse and Pipewire Jack, and that's how like it's a drop-in. So if you run like Pulse Audio, like graphical tools to see Pulse Audio, it still works because I think it's still using Pulse Audio underneath, even though it's Pipewire. So it's Pipewire's implementation of Pulse Audio.
Yeah, I believe we still use ALSA, and then
Yeah.
Pulse Audio still exists, and then Pipewire handles Pulse Audio like a drop-in replacement. So it's all three levels now within Pipewire.
Yeah, so ALSA is still the base portion of it.
Yeah, like the
And-
most primitive
right.
like system.
And so there is no, when you have, at least on my systems I run, I'm all in on the Pipewire. I don't know.
I'm not sure. But there's still uses for Pulse Audio though.
So
Like
what would
my
those?
laptop.
Okay.
Uh,
How old is your laptop?
this laptop is about 4.5, 5 years old, I think.
Oh,
Okay.
goodness.
It's not that old. However, the problem I think it is it's an HP Envy. You know, HP is like super proprietary. I like have like 4 to 6 drivers that it needs, like a proprietary driver for my screen panel because it's a touch screen, proprietary driver for the keyboard on it, and the audio code. And and Pipewire does not seem to play well with it at all.
Really?
Yeah, and I found this out about 8 months ago. I was running Fedora, and I was wondering why the audio servers kept crashing. And finally, I put Pulse on there and tried to pipe it through with the plugins, and that worked a little bit better, but it kept crashing Pulse. So I finally just pulled Pipewire, and then all of a sudden my audio codes worked. So the thing is, the reason why I don't use Fedora anymore is because Fedora forces Pipewire completely. I literally went, I kept putting it back on every time I updated the system. And the thing is, I went into the DNF config file and banned the package, but DNF went and commented out the line and put Pipewire back on the system. I was just like, because I literally went back into the config file, I'd see it commented out. I'm like, I didn't comment that out. What? So I had to get rid of Fedora, and now I run Ubuntu-based distros. The thing is, Pop! OS has been using Pipewire for a while. It recognized my audio code and didn't install it. It installed Pulse Audio instead. So apparently it's just my audio code just doesn't play nice.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably because of the Envy stuff. I know it's probably what the Olsen whatever audio stuff that HP usually beats. Man, I can't even remember the audio. It's not Beats, but it's the other one.
Yeah,
So
it's
hold
that
on.
one. Yeah,
Bang & Olufsen.
thank you. That's the one.
yeah, that. Yeah,
And that's probably why, because it's probably using some magic voodoo underneath with like when it does Windows stuff. So that wouldn't surprise me if that's what's causing a lot of the issues and conflicts.
yeah. But I mean, with Pulse Audio, it works just fine. It. So I'm staying with Pulse on this machine until I get rid of it.
So I have an HP EliteBook 840 G7 right here, and
Got one
I had
too.
I had zero issues with any of the nonsense. This was like I didn't have to do any kind of like sleight of hand or beating with a sledgehammer to get anything to work on it. Actually, just everything just worked pretty fantastically right out of the box. I am using openSUSE, so that's probably why. But
I was
like
waiting
this,
for it.
I mean, I couldn't help myself. I mean, it was low hanging fruit. I just go for it. But it's actually been a really great Linux laptop. And also, I don't know if it's because it's an EliteBook and maybe they use more mainstream. Like a lot of times, the business class machines, they use slightly older components or less whiz bang new experimental stuff. If that makes any sense.
I don't think it's just that. I think a lot of I'm assuming it's a gamer eccentric notebook that you have.
No, this is
not you, not you, Nate.
Oh.
Penguin.
This one, it was my mom's computer at one point, but this one is more, I would say was more designed for production as far as video production than gaming. It doesn't have it doesn't have a dedicated graphics card. It has an onboard one, but it's pretty much a multimedia laptop.
Yeah, that's probably why, because a lot of the multimedia stuff has a lot of the weird, like esoteric stuff that's annoying, media keys and, like you said, touchscreen stuff. And whereas, at least from my experience with HP, is like you mentioned, Nate, the EliteBooks, those are more bulk order kind of items.
Mm-hmm.
So those will tend to be tested a little more with something like Linux, because of Red Hat and all the other kind of distros that will generically be run on those like workstation level machines,
right,
and on the back end. So it's usually why they use Intel parts and a lot of the other stuff.
I'm pretty sure actually Ubuntu is one of these supported operating systems for the EliteBook. I'm quite certain of that, actually. So, yeah. Bill, have you found that there's been any computers in your IT space that you operate in where Pipewire doesn't work and Pulse does?
Not too often. We're pretty good about picking hardware that's more or less Linux friendly, so it's not really as much of an issue. I don't deal a whole lot in gaming laptops. I've got a Best Buy down the road that deals with that. So the Matt, as you said, the weird esoteric hardware that can sometimes be a problem. I actually, not on this machine, but on the laptop here, is a ZBook Dragonfly, and that came with an NVIDIA RTX 2060 in it, and then the Tiger Lake audio card, which, knock on wood, that's probably been my most like use case specific machine that's come through. But everything else is usually like straight up Intel audio, Intel graphics on a laptop.
What about you, Swift? I know you deal. It seems like you deal in a lot of hardware. At least if I'm reading the various chat rooms that you're in, it seems like you do spend a lot of time playing with hardware. Have you come across any Pipewire doesn't work, and Pulse seems to work better situations?
No, I haven't had any issues with Or if I did have an issue, I didn't know what it was. So I don't really know, to be honest with
If you had an issue, it didn't crop up enough that you noticed it.
you. No.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I've been doing Pipewire now. I think it's been over a year at this point, pretty much full time with everything. And I only recently, I think it was because of either Scrap or DOS Geek, that I started playing with the different like the routing tools. What are those like the patch bay and so forth. And that's actually a lot of fun to play with, to route things around and so forth. My only issue is it sometimes just seems to immediately forget and reset itself. Like if I pause and resume something, I don't know how to keep things persistent.
What patch bay are you using for it?
Oh, you had to ask. Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know Carla has that issue.
QPW graph.
See, I haven't had that. See, now I'm on openSUSE now, so that's a whole other topic with
Oh,
the thing.
That
But
sounds so nice.
right, so I'm kind of trying to compare notes with Nate on some of this. But I find that if I open QPW graph with the script and I pick my settings, like it opens all my apps up, and then I QPW graph is last with my preset. If something dies and it comes back, it remembers that way. The other thing is using the Pipewire command line stuff. Let me pull my script up while I'm riffing here. And what you do is you create virtual IO. Like they show up in when you go to, like, say you go to your, I don't know, if I'm on KDE, I'm going to go to my system tray and pull up my audio and configure audio devices. And in there, it'll show my onboard, it'll show my HDMI audio, it'll show my USB cards and whatever. Well, it'll also show those virtual ones, which you can set to be microphones or playback. And in Pipewire or on QPW Graph or Carlo, whatever your patch bay is, it'll show up. And those will remember all the time because you set your apps like Zoom or Discord, or if you're doing a WebRTC on, was it StreamYard? I do one of those weekly. Now that's on a browser, so whatever my browser is set up for, it will connect directly to that. Those don't come back up with every reset. There are config files you'd have to go into. I hope that Pipewire comes a little bit farther than Jack in that respect, but there's one really, but you can do that, and if you know how to set those up, write a script, there it goes. Now, I have some issues with some things that are not working out as well as I thought, but they're working. You can hear me. And I'm using all the same stuff I was using on Fedora for the most part. A very few tweaks. But there's a cool tool, and if you search for it, it is pipe control. This is one of those things that I always end up talking about that everyone's like, oh, you're in the weeds now because I'm talking about bit rates and buffers and things. If you pull up pipe control, it will come up with a screen that looks like top, but for audio stuff. And you can do PW tech top, or PW-top is one thing in a terminal, and you can get a terminal version of it. Well, pipe control shows it to you in a graphical, which is cool. If you click the settings in the upper right corner, you can see force sample rate and force buffer rate, and you can set a minimum and a max. So you can play with those in relation to all your audio cards and things. I recommend if you're going to do anything with that, you're probably going to be telling all of your onboard audio to be quiet, shut up, go away. You're going to turn it off in your controls, and you're going to use just a USB interface. Don't try to mix and match. Pipewire can mix and match, which is cool. I've played with it, but it's not as stable as just using one card. use one card. You can I could take my headphones off and Bluetooth earbud and plug it into Pipewire and walk away and still hear and talk to you guys. But it's not as stable if I'm just using this. So if you want stability, you want to get that jack feel now, this is the way you can easily get to it. There's not as many little things that are as easy to get to, but this pipe control app, if they pile in a whole bunch of other stuff, like adding your virtual in IO, your virtual, you want to like in the cable, like on Windows, it's like virtual cables. You know, if you can configure that stuff in here without having to use a terminal or write a script for it every time you boot your machine, that would be amazing, because that's the kind of stuff that Ubuntu Studio, let's come full circle back to talk about Ubuntu and Pipewire. Ubuntu Studio is done on Jack, where you can, they have, it's like, I think it's called Studio Control. And if they are going to go to Pipewire, they're going to want something like that for Ubuntu Studio, and we'll probably get it. That right there is the silver lining in all of this, is to have all of this really easy plug and play stuff that's starting to come along and get ironed out in Pipewire, and then bring the Ubuntu Studio guys along and then be like, well, we need a GUI for this because we're trying to make music and do production, and we can't be digging through, you know, man pages and terminals to get this stuff done.
Right.
So it's coming.
Now, I will say I've been playing in numerous ways with the routing and such, and the jack features, I guess, of Pipewire. And just for fun, I connected a Bluetooth speaker using the HDMI outputs from the laptop, like in my dock station, and I piped it to everything. And aside from some latency with the Bluetooth, which I can adjust, actually it worked fantastic. Like I was really quite impressed with how well it works, and it was kind of weird how well it worked. Actually, it was that simple. The one thing I didn't have as a problem, like I didn't like unconnect things, but I just like ripped the USB-C cable out to go take the laptop someplace else, and so it automatically did whatever it wanted to do, but it wouldn't pipe the output back to the internal speakers because it was automatically pushing to a different output, and I couldn't get it to push the output that I wanted to for whatever reason until I plugged it back in and then disconnected it and then
I see what you did.
Yeah, it like hung on to that output. It just, it was like, hanging on to a pet that, died on you kind of a thing, and just absolutely hung on to it until I nicely took it away from it. But
that's
anyway.
Interesting. I've never had anything like that happen, because once in a while I have to restart my, or at least do it when I was on Fedora. I would have to restart my interface. I just power cycle it, and the bit rate would correct the issue. And when I knew I needed to do it, my microphone would sound like a robot. All the sample rates were off, and so it's like the interface forgot how to talk to the machine for a moment, needed a little reminder. So
I would say the only issue I have like with that is if I like these headphones can also be a microphone. If I switch the codecs to be able to do that, then the audio sounds worse. That's the only thing I've ever noticed.
That's a Bluetooth issue. You can't have both high quality audio, like for playback, and have a microphone. It doesn't separate them. What happens is it goes into a headset mode, and it's like talking on the phone. It does it on my Bluetooth earbuds also. It's better to just have two separate anyway. They handle better.
I know, but I'm lazy.
I know. It'll be nice one day when we get a combined headset set up. Or you can, I think there are some wireless ones where it has a little base station. You can plug it into stuff, and the headphones with the microphone are separate. It's got a little splitter that comes out, and you can plug them in separate. They're gaming headphones. But none of those, when you get into those ones, they don't always have the same quality, or you'll end up looking like Close Encounters of the Third Kind when you wear them. So That's an old UFO movie for the youngins. Sorry.
For the youngins. I think Adam knows. Welcome, Adam. I've almost had a close encounter of the Adam kind, since we're not that far away from each other anymore. I don't hear him, but it's nice that he's here.
Carving plateaus out of mashed potatoes.
Yes. I think he's not far from the Wisconsin Dells. No, he's not. That's a beautiful place. If you ever go to Wisconsin, if you ever decide to drive beyond the Cheddar Curtain, Wisconsin Dells is really nice.
I drove through there once. It's cool.
Bring your bathing suits.
You could, for sure, if it's not wintertime. Cheese curds are the best. If you get them in Wisconsin, like when they're fresh, and then when you bite into them, they squeak. That's when you know they're like absolutely fresh cheese curds. So squeaky cheese curds.
I love cheese curds.
Yeah, absolutely, just glorious. So I got a comment on one of the YouTube videos in the Linux Saloon. Go to Linux Saloon, youtube.linuxsaloon.com. We'll take you there if you don't put an HTTPS in front of it. But this Gary Jenkins, he's publicly subscribed. He said, you should talk about things that will challenge people to critically think and learn, be productive, and help people. I'd like to think we do that. I think the whole purpose of Linux Saloon is to really, share ideas and also encourage people to get involved and to do your part to contribute. And so it just kind of made me think a little bit, like I wonder if maybe that I had kind of missed some of that aspect of what the purpose of Linux Saloon was, and maybe some way of maybe ensuring we kind of roll some of those ideas in there. I invited Gary to be on Linux Saloon and give some of his input, but I don't see him, unless maybe Bill's real name is Gary Jenkins. Maybe not.
Well, not today at least.
No.
Well, maybe he's, just trying to make his way across SpongeBob's living room to the computer.
Oh, it could be. I was thinking maybe he's the brother of Leroy. Anybody remember the Leroy Jenkins?
We may never know.
Yes, I do.
That'd have been like 10 years ago now, I think.
That was epic.
Yeah.
I still watch it like every so many months just to have a laugh.
It's funny the things that make you laugh and sometimes you don't know why.
Keck's in the chat.
But
oh wow.
So is anybody here involved in any particular, I know Ben, you build a distribution.
Yeah.
Matt is a content creator, so he contributes some stuff. I know Bill, he writes bug reports like they're, I don't know, term papers, it seems like.
I don't file the bug reports. I make Neil do it for me.
Well, okay, so you're involved in some aspect of that. I know Servan, he's quite involved in different aspects of Endeavor OS and the ARM portion of it. Are you still pretty busy with that, Servan?
Yeah. So because I was on vacation, there was some issues. So I had to, after I came back, I had to create new images, build new kernels. There was a recent openSSL update, so we had to rebuild a lot of packages.
Okay. Yep. I remember what that CVE was, but that was kind of recent. Delayed the release of Fedora.
Yeah, we had the same issue. But yeah, right now everything is going well. I told you, I got a new device, right? It's the Alexa Rock 5. It's based on RK3588 chip. It's supposed to be the most powerful single board computer.
Oh,
at least on the ARM side. I've actually gotten Debian to work on it. First time using Debian. But I think the graphic driver isn't good yet. So there are some glitches. So the image they provide is XFCE, but there are some graphical glitches on it. So I don't know how to fix those graphical issues. A lot of work is being done to get the graphics drivers upstream, even the kernel. So the kernel, the main challenge of most of these single board computers is that the drivers and other components aren't upstream yet. It takes time to get all these patches upstream, and they're still doing it. But meanwhile, you can't use a mainline kernel. So they use something called a BSP kernel. I think it's called Board Support Package Kernel. But that's 5.10. So there are many features which are not there in 5.10. And you can't build it. I'm trying to build it. I sort of build it. I don't know if it works or not. Again, the same issue with U-boot. It's a forked U-boot. It's not upstream yet, so you can't. It still uses Python 2 to build. So I can't build that now. I'm not sure how to get other OS on it because, again, it's still almost, this platform is almost an year old. I think they released it last year. And this chip was proposed, I think, in January, but they were recently shipped in October. But again, I think you talked about some of the ARM chips on your podcast last week.
Yep.
Again, the main challenge of getting an ARM board like working nicely is kernel support. And kernel support takes years because you know how it works, right? You have to submit patches. It takes a lot of time for them to accept the patches, kernel maintainers to accept patches. And you need like good people working on it so that your patches are not dismissed.
Right.
So I think Rockchip, the maker of the RK3588, is working with Collabra to get all these comments. So right now, I think there's no USB and HDMI support upstream, but there is Ethernet support. I forgot what else. Like some parts of the board are working, but some parts are not. So you can SSH onto it. Like you can use it as a server right now, directly using the mainline ARM kernel. But again, I haven't tried it yet, but it seems really good work is being done. And also, I think Pine64 is also going to release a board based on this platform. There's one more board based on this called 3588S. It's like a mini. So I think many single board computer manufacturers are trying to get, because it's a really powerful platform. So, and once all these issues are sorted out, it'll be really powerful. Like it seems you can do 8K on it, but I haven't tried it yet. Again, many parts don't work properly yet, but it's an octa-core processor and it's like much powerful than the Pi or even the Odroid, which I use. So I'm really excited to see how it looks in the future. But right now it's functioning, but not that well.
Well, it's encouraging. I like hearing about new hardware coming out, and even if support comes a little bit later, at least support comes later. But you did get a response out of your being on vacation. Vince, of the Sleepy Eye variety, he says, developers on vacation. Well, now I've heard everything, and then a couple of emojis.
Luckily, like Endora's Arm has one more developer, so he takes care of stuff when I'm not doing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I was looking at some different ARM-based devices. I think even again recently. So I have the Pi 4 seems to just be a little bit lacking sometimes in doing certain things. Just can't seem to quite keep up, and it gets pretty warm. It's the 8 GB version. I mean, it does okay. So, it's not bad. It does okay.
For Pi 4, if you wanted to like really put it to the ringer, you need a cooling case, a passive cooling case with like, I'll send you pictures and links, like with fins so that you increase the surface area for cooling, and also a fan. So before I got my Odroid, I just had my Pi. I used to compile kernels on it. It used to get really hot. So then I got my cooling solution. So I have a Noctua fan, small fan, along with this passive cooling case, and it really improved the performance. But I think the use case of Raspberry Pi is a solid, like low-power desktop computer, but you can't run like KDE or GNOME on it. You have to run like LXQt, Mate, those sort of things. It's not built for heavy-duty CPU work. But the main difference between Raspberry Pi and other platforms is that you get good memory. Like Odroid has good CPU, but low memory. So RAM is low. So you can't run as many things on it. So for Raspberry Pi, you can keep on running containers, so that you can use the 8 GB RAM what you have. and also the CPU is enough to run a lot of applications, but you can't run intensive applications. That's the main drawback. You can't watch like 4K YouTube video. Even 720p works. 180p struggles sometimes, but 720p works.
Yeah.
So you can't use it for like heavy intensive applications. That's not what it's built for.
I have the flirt case. So Bill pointed out the flirt case for the Pi 4 is great, and it does cooling, like it draws the heat into the case, and so it does a really fantastic job. And I think that case is just absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But
So I hear that the Pi 400, because it has a big heat sink built in,
Yeah.
it
Yep.
does a pretty good job in cooling, and it's actually overclocked more than the regular Pi 4.
yeah, it does.
default.
The Pi 400 does seem to run a lot better for like desktop type stuff. And I run Plasma that without the compositor and not using Wayland.
Yeah.
That
The Wayland works well on ARM, surprisingly. Like
I was thinking I had
sometimes
some.
we have issues on X11, but it's not like X64. It's the opposite. Like Wayland is not that stable, but X11 is stable. But somehow on ARM, like I don't get it.
Yeah,
But
but maybe it's
if you're doing intensive work, like passive cooling is not enough. You need active cooling. You need a fan.
okay.
I
So
got
luckily, Raspberry Pi has GPI opens. There has a 5 volt, so 5 volt power supply. So if you get a 5 volt good fan, like Noctua is a very good company, you can blast air on it and you can run heavy stuff. But again, it's 4 cores of 1.8 gigahertz, and you can overclock it to 2 or 2.1, and that's it. So it's not that powerful anyways.
So Evelyn Poplaska says the Rockchip 3855 looks awesome as a desktop chip. Yeah, I haven't actually read anything about it. Has anybody here read about the Rockchip 3855?
That's what I'm saying. It's
Okay.
3588, not 3855. It's 3588.
3588.
Yeah, that's what I have. It's a really powerful desktop chip, but again, a lot of work is being done by several like Rockchip and other companies to get all the support mainline into the kernel, and also U-boot. So main challenges of ARM boards is that you need a bootloader and you need a kernel. If you
Right.
have these two things, it's the main difference. So Raspberry Pi is a really good kernel and it's a really good bootloader, so it works all the time across several distributions.
And
You can build a bootloader on Debian, Arch, whatever. You can build a kernel on, again, whatever OS you want. If it is Linux, you can build a kernel and bootloader. So that's why, like, it can run literally anything. But that's not the case for other platforms. So Odroid also is really good in the case, like, you can build a kernel and bootloader on any OS. So you can get Odroid running pretty good on pretty much any ARM-based operating system. But it takes time for these. Again, Hard Kernel and Raspberry Pi Foundation are old companies. This for Rockchip, most of the companies which are shipping it are new. So let's see what Pine64 does. Pine64 also, but they don't do software support for most time. Like they say community has to do it. So I'm not sure if their involvement will speed up things. But yeah, things have to take their time. But by next year, I think it'll be really viable.
Right.
Like people are saying you can stream on it, like play like some
Well, that'd
retro
be
game
cool.
and stream on it.
Yeah. So Sean Gold says the
think it's
OX64 just dropped the other day. It could be useful in certain applications once the Linux support gets ironed out. Seems rather basic compatibility from what I've read so far, is what Sean Gold says. What is the OX64? Do we know?
Nah. If you can send me a link, I can take a look.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up right now.
So good thing about this platform is that it has a HDMI in, so you can use it as a capture card. It has like several PCIe lanes. You can attach an NVMe drive. Like there are a lot more things to explore. I think this the board company Radxa is planning to have a camera and other peripherals, so you can plug and play. So over the next year, like a lot more things can be done. Like this chip has like so many things it can do.
So OX64 is a RISC-based board.
Oh, I haven't.
From Pine64.
So
that is
for
interesting.
RISC-based, I don't think there are many OSs, but there's a Arch Linux ARM-based project, like someone else is doing it. I think it's an Arch Linux developer who is porting all the Arch Linux like packages to RISC-V, just 1-to-1. So I think already 90% of Arch Linux packages have already ported to RISC-V, but I don't know if anyone managed to get it running. But he's trying to compile packages for RISC-V.
All right, hold the presses here. This is interesting. The board features for network. So it has 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 5.2. That's fine. It's got an Ethernet on there. But what I think is interesting is that it has Zigbee built into it. So if you're into like home automation, that is a perfect little board for doing home automation stuff outside of Wi-Fi. That is really cool. Very cool.
I gotta get me one of those. I mean, I'll probably a couple of them.
No.
What's this board called again?
It's the OX64 from Pine 64. Pine 64. It's a RISC-V based single board computer, or RISC-V, whatever. So
Yeah.
32-bit
The link
CPU.
is in YouTube chat or in the Zoom
Yep.
chat.
Yeah, so check that out. That is really
There
cool.
we go.
So I don't have any Zigbee stuff right now, but there's some my concern is if like I have a sometimes you can have like a sump pump go out. I like to have some sensors for like when there's like water issues, so it doesn't become an issue. And I live here in Michigan where the water table is about 4 inches below ground level. It seems like it's a joke. But if you lived in southwestern Michigan, you'd understand. Everything's a swamp, basically. There's no such thing as solid earth here. That's not true. Anyway, so it's nice to be able to know if something has failed before it actually fails. That's interesting. So Dale, you've been a little bit quiet here. Do you do anything with ARM-based computers? Are you more of an x86 kind of guy when it comes to your computing?
Actually, I'm more x86. I did get the my Pi 3B Plus back from my friend. He runs a streaming site, Crooked River Radio, and
Okay.
he plays. He just refreshed his music. He was like, I think he's doing 70s, 80s, 90s music, and he also has some podcasts on there. And he was toying with the idea of using like a mumble or something like that. And so I set this up for him, and ended up he never ended up using the mumble because of the barrier of entry to get into it. So for the average people, so he basically went to Zoom and just used the Zoom's chatting feature. But anyways, what I'm going to do with this is set up a Pi hole for him.
That's a fantastic thing to set up.
Yes, and once I get around to putting TrueNAS scale on my Debian server, I'm going to put this in a container, the Pi hole in a container, and run that on mine. But no, I've all x86. I've got my my Xeon is back there. I've got a mini ITX. That's one of the whatever they call it, 1900s or whatever the Atoms.
Okay.
And then I got that one back there. You can't see it, but that one's an old i5 like a 2014 model i5, and I'm testing some memory for a friend. He had 64 gigs of RAM, and he's not sure if it's good or not. So I'm running memtest 86 on it.
Nice. That's good. That's a neat little tool that sometimes we forget about, that a lot of these distributions have. You can actually test your memory before you actually get into it, if you have problems with it. And that's a fantastic thing to have.
Yeah, this is a long process. I haven't run memtest in a long time, and it's been a couple hours now. I think it took like 2 hours and 30 minutes, 2 hours and 40 minutes to do one pass with 64 gigs of memory.
Wow, that's a lot of testing.
Yeah. I have an ARM-based laptop here. It's a Chromebook, and I've been trying to get a Linux distribution running on it but that can be a bit tricky. It'll be the second Chromebook I've ever converted because I've got this Chromebook right here, but this one's an AMD 64 laptop, and this one was really easy to convert once I got CBIOS on it, and it runs a Arch distribution. But yeah, I've been trying to get Linux to work on the other one, but Manjaro didn't want to work on it at all. And I think it has to do with the BIOS. It's not letting me swap out the BIOS.
I haven't done that. I have a Chromebook that I need to do something with because it's no longer supported by the Googles for Chrome OS. So I was thinking like what I could put on there. I can only think of one distribution though right now that just gets stuck in my head.
Well, when it comes to Chromebooks like this only has a 16 gigabyte eMCC drive in it,
Yeah, it's plenty.
non-upgradable. So that is why I chose Arch, is so I can put the packages I need on it and nothing else. It has i3 as its desktop.
You could get a little USB drive. It's a 512 gigabyte drive. Doesn't stick very far outside of the computer. You can throw it around, throw it in your bag, and like leave it connected.
Does it have Internet Explorer?
Does it have what?
Internet Explorer?
I
have some ActiveX plugins that I need to run, and
So actually, I do have Internet Explorer running on my computer because I have an instance of Windows 95 for fun.
Exactly what I need.
But yeah, the thing is,
you know what? You should put that in your Steam Deck.
I should.
Windows 95 on the Steam Deck. That'd be fantastic.
That'd be awesome.
If you don't do it,
plenty of driver support.
Yes.
But yeah, the hardest part of converting a Chromebook is getting the BIOS swapped out. I had to put a project called CBIOS on it for it to work. But the thing is, it only works on older Chromebooks. It does not work on the newer ones. It won't even let you put it on. So you got to find something else.
Speaking of that, I think maybe Bill might understand this a little better than I. So there is, I don't know if you saw the news, but come 2023, openSUSE is going to drop support for V1 x86-64. Have you seen that?
Yes, I did see that.
And so you have to have V2 or later, and I think that's like, I don't know what core version that is. Like, is it second or first generation core onward, or it's just, I don't know where the actual break is.
Yes, after I'm almost positive it's from like earlier than, is it earlier than Core 2 Duo or Core 2 Duo and earlier?
It may be Core 2 Duo and earlier. But it's interesting to see that CPU support for 64-bit is now starting to fall away. So I guess what's the solution then? I mean, a Core 2 Duo is still a very viably functional machine. And so very soon you won't be able to, is the kernel no longer support it? Or what specifically is not going to be supported anymore? I've been meaning to do some more poking around on that.
It's going to be kernel updates. That's really what it'll affect. You'll be cut off at your certain kernel version.
It's not only the kernel, but the apps too. So when you build packages, you can build it with the V2 and V3 architecture. Mostly right now, all the apps are built for normal x86-64. But if you build it for V2 or V3 on those specific chips, computers will get a 10% performance increase, I think. Maybe that's what they're going for. There's a Arch-based distro called CacheOS, which builds specifically for x86-64 V3. so that they get that performance from both the kernel and the packages. So
Interesting.
it's a compiler option. I don't know how easy is it. I think it's just changing like one line and like make package or something. But you need an entire repo. So I think they're changing the compiler options, but that makes it so that I don't know if the new apps can run on old apps or not, but basically the normal compiled apps can run on new ones and old ones. But I don't know if the opposite is true, but people do it. Like if you compile for V2 or V3, you get a performance increase.
I think the original Core Duo was not 64-bit. It was the second generation, the Intel Core 2 Duo.
Yeah, it was.
That's
the first
that's what
generation
it
that was
was.
64.
Yeah.
So it's the first generation that had 64-bit.
So my understanding here, I'll pull up the news article. So here, I got it right here. I'll put it in the chat. So the mitigation plan for microarchitecture level changes and information about advancing openSUSE's release tumbleweed into a x86-64 v2 microarchitecture. It has moved forward. So that means that anything that actually tells you what you have to do, if you run this command, because you should of course always run random commands you see out there on the internet, done by some rando. In your terminal, it'll tell you what you have, and if you should see in there the different versions that are supported.
I mean, they wouldn't put the command out there if it didn't do something, right?
Right. Yeah. Probably just it's not
It's just not in the nature of people on the internet to lie.
Right. Exactly. But I mean, it's coming from news.opensuse.org. So.
Oh, well, I take that back.
Anyway, so if I understand this correctly, then my Dell D630 will no longer be functional, as well as my Core 2 Duo machine that I have in my shop floor, my forge out there, will also no longer be functional, or won't be useful. So
You're gonna have to go to Debian.
There's something.
What are they?
Jill does
That's
it.
32. Are they 32-bit machines or?
No, they're 64-bit, but they're 64-bit V1 machines.
Oh,
So V2,
yeah. You'll probably have to do like a Debian. Yeah.
or I could probably just run a local instance of OBS and then reactivate that portion of it, and then just pull from the source trees.
Yeah.
So that'd be the other option. I'm sure Bill will help me set up. Well, actually, I'll probably talk to Neil. Neil can probably help me set up an OBS, local OBS, if I want to keep those machines running, right? Right, Bill?
Sure. I'm sure he'll be able to do that.
Sure, he probably doesn't have the time for that kind of nonsense.
I highly doubt it. I could volunteer him to do it. I usually do that to him anyway. So
yeah, I'm sure he'd absolutely love that. I'm sure. Anyway, I think it's very interesting that because we there's been a lot of talk about the alternative. I can't do an Arch system. I mean, I guess maybe I could if I really felt like it, but I don't have that kind of patience.
But I heard you run Arch all the time now.
Yeah.
That's what I hear now.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, it's called Steam OS. I don't do anything with Arch. I just think
It's a pretty spectacular OS, though.
Yeah, it is.
Real talk.
Steam is pretty great.
Yeah. I used to thought before I actually converted this Chromebook, I actually thought Arch was a bit more difficult than what it really is. So, but I still don't like rolling releases. I just don't like them. I think they break too much.
There's always Gen 2.
There is. I could also do Linux from scratch, be like Ben, and just start building
Yeah.
something from scratch.
I tried to run Gen 2 a few years ago. My only regret was that I didn't give up sooner.
when I tried Gen 2, that was after the week that my friends and I played around with it. We asked ourselves, what did we learn? Well, we don't mess with Gen 2 again. Is there anything else? Yes,
Yeah.
this was a total waste of time.
Just put it on the list of like touching the hot stove, right? Like you only have to do it once to know not to do it again.
I have seen, for those of you that don't know me, I have seen the dark side of Gen 2 utilized in production and not updated. at a school district.
Ooh,
Bad
Yeah.
things happened.
yeah, I imagine. But when it comes to Gen 2, I don't like downloading vanilla Gen 2 and trying to install that. I actually discovered this really good fork of Gen 2 called Clover OS, and it actually does everything for you when in the setup, and it makes Gen 2 a lot easier to run. But
Did you say Clover OS?
yeah, yep,
Like
Clover
the
OS.
4chan distro?
What?
The 4chan distro?
Let me take a look for a second. Clover. It's been a while since I ran it. Let me see. Oh, it's no longer supported. It's no longer in support.
Yeah, that whole thing was kind of a mess, like kind of a joke. A bunch of people on 4chan built.
It could, yeah, it's certainly, yeah, that is right. But yeah, it still worked pretty good though. But
Adam, Gen 2 might be useful for where you are. You can use it as your room heater. Keep compiling stuff, heat up your room.
You got a good point.
You're
If you-
not in Atlanta anymore. You're in Minnesota. Sorry, you're in
If I'm not
Wisconsin now.
compiling, I'm freezing.
Yeah. You can just keep compiling using it as space heater. Free heat.
If you wanted to get your feet wet, excuse me, in Gen 2 without spending 3 or 4 days or a week compiling it, you can try Red Core Linux. I believe it's a Calamaris installer, and it gets you into a workable system with a GUI. And I believe they have a script. I'm not sure if it's Python, but it's a script that uses portage to build applications, so that when you do an update, it's sort of like an apt-get, but it's more of fetch, compile, and then when it does the updates, it fetch, does deltas, and compile. So you can get your feet wet, but you still have the pain of waiting 45 minutes for your computer to finish doing an update. So it's going to be sort of like running Windows.
Nate, we can't hear you.
I was thinking you could probably, since the cryptocurrency markets have basically all but crashed, you probably buy some cheap mining equipment out there and do your compiling on that. Maybe, I don't know. Can you compile GPUs? Is that a thing? No,
Not that I have heard of, at least.
No.
But it's theoretically possible.
I can build that heater Sravin was talking about.
Right. I figure you may as well have your heater pay you back a little bit.
Well, when I tried Red Core, it was on my Lenovo T460, and some of the updates would take like 45 minutes. I had one update where it was compiling for 3 hours.
Wow.
So yeah. So I imagine if you had something more modern, I don't think the compiling would be so bad. But yeah, I think like I haven't seen it in a couple years because I reviewed it for a Distro Hoppers. I think it was like a year or two ago, and I think they said to ease the pain and suffering that I think not OpenOffice, LibreOffice and the browsers are binary. They send it to you already compiled, updated in a binary form, because nobody wants to wait 2 weeks to compile LibreOffice or a week to compile Chrome or Firefox.
Oh,
I guess
but
it depends on how much you don't want to work. And like, I'd love to send you this stuff, man, but it's still compiling my update. It's been 3 days. I know, but
It
can
teaches
look
you
at it.
patience.
I tried compiling Chromium on my Pi. I gave up after 6 hours. It took 1 hour for just the Git unpacking. Because the Git code base is so large, I gave up after 1 hour. 6 hours, sorry. These things are so huge. It takes so much time to compile. The kernel is pretty fast. On a Raspberry Pi, you can compile a kernel in like 2 hours. But Chromium, no.
I don't know that I want to have to compile everything just to use my computer. It doesn't seem like the highest and best use of my time.
You're not alone in that, especially if you don't have like a 4 to 8 core processor. You're going to be spending a while just compiling your updates.
I got some pretty beefy machines, so I'm not really concerned about that. If I really had to, I may have compiled stuff before.
But the issue with compiling is that you really have to know what you're doing. Because again, package maintainers for distros, they always keep changing compilers. Sorry, not compilers, like the build instructions with new, like projects make changes all the time, right? Upstream. So sometimes old options don't work. You have to either patch them or even like change compiler options. And most of these distros, like including openSUSE, have like build servers for their maintainers. So they can just build packages on the build servers and publish it directly from there. And it's what you call building in a clean environment, so that you don't have any dependency issues, you don't have other artifacts which you get from compiling in a normal working environment. So it's called building in a clean chroot. So that's what you have to normally do. So all the packages which are compiled for distros, what we use, are all compiling clean chroots. So yeah, all these distros have like huge, like powerful build servers. So just the maintainers keep the package in a queue. It gets built, it gets pushed. So that's like, at least we know those people know what they're doing. We are trusting them. I wouldn't trust, like I also build and maintain packages, but those are very few in number. But at least it's better to trust other people to build packages than us, I guess.
I think if you had to compile all the packages that you use, it will make you appreciate the time you do have to use computer more.
Yeah, I used to compile my own kernels, back in the day, because I needed some function or feature or whatever. It is such a long process to just for the kernel to do your entire operating system, all the little bits and bobs. That just sounds like I hope you have a second computer, or where you do manual labor on your job.
When we did Slackware, I compiled Mate, I think, and that took like an hour or something, hour and a half, I think, something, on my slow computer.
One of the worst.
Compiling the kernel is hard anymore. Just take existing like build scripts and then modify the configs to what modules and you want to include or exclude or whatnot. It's not that hard. Like I compile my own kernels because Arch Linux ARM doesn't have a up-to-date kernel for Odroid and Pinebook. So I compile those kernels so that I can get the hardware running on it. It's not that hard if you have like a base of someone else's work, and then you can copy the base, build upon it, and make it your own.
I always just use Gen kernel. I was lazy.
Well, it's a very good point about the compiling, know what you're doing, because you don't want to spend 2 or 3 hours compiling like Audacity or something and then forget to include the FFmpeg codecs to actually save files or import files. So yeah, the build flags are very important, and the build environments, because you don't want to do a static compile on your computer using the libraries you have on there, and then you do a upgrade and you try to run the application again and it crashes because the distro maintainer upgraded the libraries.
Right. And there's that fun.
Yeah,
I think
that's why I like LTS distros, because they don't update a lot of the libraries until you roll it forward.
So Dale, that's the advantage of building in a clean chroot, is that you create the chroot before building, so you always have the up-to-date libraries.
What are you gonna say, Bill?
One of the funnier things that a friend of mine who recently got married, one of the shenanigans that he and I have done is abuse each other's old Gentoo installers back in the day. And I remember right before I left his house, I got onto his machine and I got it to recompile, except I changed all the use flags to be plus GTK minus K. So basically, this guy who runs Plasma apps for everything now just got his entire system recompiled for GTK instead of Qt. So that kept him busy for a little while.
That's funny.
On old spinning Rust drives,
Right.
and like Core 2 quad machines.
So did he ever forgive you?
Well, he remembered that when he sent me the prank that warranted him getting a veiled threat in his best man speech. So
Oh, okay.
the same
Okay.
guy. Yeah, same guy.
Yeah. Nice.
But that's how we would learn how use flags work, right? Because you could sit there like, oh, I am just going to shop through all these and not realize you could severely damage a system running Gen 2 unless you know what you're doing with those.
That's great. I know there's also in compiling, there's static linking, and then there's another, I can't remember what it is, but
Dynamic linking. 'cause
dynamic linking.
I misspoke, because if you do a dynamic linking, you're taking all the libraries that are in your user USR. I have a bad habit of calling it user, but /USR/lib directory.
Mhm.
If you're doing a static compile, which is what I did a lot of, once I figured out the difference many years ago, and that's when you can actually make like a build directory in your home folder.
Mhm.
And then you actually put all the libraries in there. And when you're configuring the build script and the build flags for that, you point it to the ones that are in your home folder, and it will compile into that binary. And then you can actually use it on any other distro, because all the necessary components are in that file. That the difference is the binaries are larger
Mhm.
than if you compiled dynamically, because dynamically it's basically having pointers to where the files are on the file system. That's
Okay.
why if you ever downloaded like a binary and it doesn't work, and let's just say you downloaded a binary for Ubuntu 16.04 and you're running 18.04 and the application doesn't run, it's because it was built for using the libraries that 16.04 had.
Mhm.
So yeah, I wanted to correct that because to be accurate. But yeah, there's a lot to learn. That's why I like doing that. Back then, this learning how the system works and playing with Gen 2. And then you appreciate things like Solus or openSUSE or Ubuntu, where everything works.
Yeah, I kind of wonder how that is able to work, since openSUSE is, well, it's not. I guess it's technically a static, just a rapidly static distribution.
Well, if you're using Leap.
Well, I mean, like I'm saying, Tumbleweed, it uses snapshots. It doesn't. It's not a true rolling from a technical perspective.
It's a continually updated, sort of like Solus or Void,
Right.
where it's a continually updating system, but it's not like a Gen 2 or a Arch,
Right.
where it's rolling, where it's throwing stuff against the wall and seeing if it sticks.
Right. So, like, I'm amazed by how many times I've been able to have how far snapshots can go, and you can still install software without things breaking. I'm amazed by how long you can actually go
Yeah.
with that.
As far as openSUSE, as far as rolling releases go, openSUSE was the most stable for me. That and Manjaro, but Manjaro has a similar update scheme to it that openSUSE has, because they'll hold back packages for 2 weeks and then push them.
openSUSE doesn't hold back packages.
What, openSUSE doesn't? I thought that they held back packages a week.
No, they don't hold anything back. It just, as soon as it passes OpenQA, then it goes out. There's no holding back anything. That's why a lot of times actually things will get released sooner in Tumbleweed than it will in Arch.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's what causes a lot of problems with the NVIDIA driver, because I have some gamer friends that tried it and they said that it's a great distro, but it just rolls too fast that it keeps on breaking the NVIDIA driver.
So yeah, with that, you have to make sure you don't update your kernel until the NVIDIA's updated their drivers. So that is a problem. So there's actually, it's the better thing to do if you're going to run NVIDIA in Tumbleweed is you'd switch the rolling method. There's where you can actually then you tell it when to roll, so it won't actually update. I think it'll hold a span of up to 50 different snapshots of linear time. It's around like 50, I think. I might have that number wrong. But when you want to go to, you wouldn't actually go to whatever snapshot you want. Like you actually specify the snapshot, and you can list what snapshots are available until you're certain that the NVIDIA driver is actually ready to be installed. So it's a lot more work if you're running NVIDIA on Tumbleweed because of that very reason. So
is there an LTS kernel on Tumbleweed? I think running that would solve all the issues.
no, they don't do on Tumbleweed. They don't do. There's no LTS. If you want LTS, you use Leap.
So in
So-
Arch, there's an LTS kernel in addition to the normal kernel. Like LTS kernel also gets updates, but it doesn't break. So the general recommendation is that if your hardware runs on LTS, just keep running it. So current LTS is 515. It has most of the features what most people need. So just keep running it. NVIDIA doesn't break or nothing else breaks. It's better to use that. So good thing about Arch is you can have multiple kernels installed. One doesn't work, you can keep swapping from the grub menu.
Yeah, I always just install the LTS kernel on anything if I'm running Arch. I don't like rolling kernels because I always find that device drivers always break on a rolling kernel. So I just always install the LTS, and that way I don't ever have to worry about it.
It's interesting that you said about the NVIDIA drivers on SUSE, because when I installed it, everything was up to date. I had all my graphics stuff set. Some of that on a Razer laptop with the 2060, and then a couple things broke. The apps wouldn't launch anymore, and there's something, I don't know exactly which packages it was, but it was a graphical thing. It wasn't that the app was crashing for other reasons, because I would try to run them from the terminal and it would give me some error that had to do with the graphics stuff. So that's interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that. I have some updates I can run now, but I'll do it after a show and see if more stuff breaks or not. It
The
runs stable
moral
other
of the
than
story, yeah, sorry.
a couple things. The other than the couple little like niche things that I do, SUSE is running great so far.
The moral of the story is never run rolling distros, always run static LTS, and then your stuff doesn't break.
No, I just run rolling.
Use what works for you. Like
Yeah.
if it's a tried and true thing for what you're doing, do it.
All right, I have the I wrote this up. Snapshot control on openSUSE Tumbleweed. It allows you to control when you actually roll your snapshots. So I'd share that. And on that, we have to talk about next week. So hey, thank you very much for this open mic night and bring your conversations. Didn't get to a couple of things, but hey, that's okay. Just kind of let the conversation be as organic and natural as possible. And hopefully I don't leave myself muted when I start talking. So next week is an application appetizer, which means got to figure out what it is, what we're going to do next week. Are there any genres of applications that really inspire you? Maybe something that tickles your fancy? Anything? So I have some things here. If not, here's some ideas. I'll bring these up again. Which are there any? Who here does like office work on their computer? Like actually like sits down and does something office work related? Okay, so 1, 2. Of course, Bill does. Bill is the office. I have to have you come in on Saturday at 9:00, Bill.
And Sunday.
Sunday. Oh, and Sunday too. So my thought was to try out maybe go through the office applications out there and maybe pick out something new and bring it to the saloon next weekend. Something new, something interesting. Or maybe here's another idea that I had. So when I was reading through This Week in GNOME, they had some different reader softwares. That sounds awful. Applications. So I don't exactly know what manga is. I know it's some sort of a anime-like style cartoon.
Comic books.
Comic books, yeah. So there's a manga reader for GNOME. There's a Flatpak on it. I thought that was interesting. And I thought maybe, does anybody actually do reading on the computer besides just PDFs? So something maybe like, if there's some like a leisure reading apps in, yeah, everyone's correcting me here. Mangas, comics.
Well, if you want reading, we can do Caliber. Have you heard of Caliber?
I have, yeah.
You can do that. That's
a cool one too.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to use like switch to Linux. Like I had a old laptop with Windows 7. I wanted to run Caliber server on it and a torch. So that's how I got into Linux.
That's a
Caliber.
Python
You can convert ebooks formats. You can set up a server and read books, transfer books to your mobile phones or iPads or whatever. So there are a lot of things you can do on Caliber. You can organize ebooks, and yeah, you can read ebooks too. It has
That's
an
really
inbuilt
cool.
reader. So how I discovered Caliber was actually like getting ebooks onto my Kindle. So if you have any e-readers, that's the go-to way of getting books onto your e-readers.
I like it. I like that, Servan. That is a great suggestion. Is anybody here against maybe exploring the Calibre ebook reader? Or maybe if there's one similar you'd like to offer up as well? Does that sound of any interest to anybody here besides Servan and myself?
If we were going to use that Caliber software,
Yeah.
we might be able to get free ebooks from Gutenberg.org.
Yeah.
Yes. I think there's actually a lot of free ebooks out there.
Reading
So-
for nerds.
I know, that's why I read.
Like this project is actually really old. Like I think it's 2006. Like it's a go-to on any operating system, Linux, Mac OS, Windows, for managing and converting ebooks. Like it's the
Yeah, it's written in Python.
It's like OBS. Like everyone uses it. Like if you're into ebooks.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great idea. Because I have a Kindle that I use, and
yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And
does anybody have any heartburn with that idea?
No?
That's how I'm going to ask instead of who likes this idea. I'm going to say, does anybody have any heartburn with the idea? This way I can, get some naysayers and then say, oh, okay, well, what's your idea, Adam?
If there's a naysayer, I'll tell you a really cool feature. It's called Caliber Web. If you host a server using Caliber, you can read your ebook on any browser, on any device, just connecting to that server. Anywhere.
That's a really neat
That's it.
feature.
Yeah. It's called Caliber Web. And if you have bookmarks or highlight stuff, it'll get saved across multiple devices. I think it will remember your reading position for sure. But as far as I know, it'll save the bookmarks also.
Yeah, I have tried that. Both Caliber Web and another one I can't remember off the top of my head. And yeah, they use like a certain protocol to push to like mobile reading devices, like an app or something on an iPad or something like that. But in my experience, the syncing was kind of finicky, and it just like in idea it should work, but oftentimes like the device will overwrite what's in the server, and like then the server still
Not
keeps
really,
the
Adam.
old one and all of that.
I can help you later. Like I can get you figured out. So you need to use some specific apps on iOS or Android, which supports
Yeah.
I think library
Correct, yeah,
protocol or
and
something.
It
OPDS.
was very flaky. I've done it, like it worked, but
I've been using it for
Doesn't-
like almost 1.5 years. It's never flaky for me. So I
Interesting.
can probably help you later.
So I got like a Paperwhite e-reader. Is that something that I can actually interface with that from the Kindle Paperwhite?
So you need to connect it to a USB. Yeah, you can.
Okay. There's no over the air. Well, all right. I'll play around with it. I even played
Over
around
the
with it.
air, there's an email option.
Okay.
Like you can use Caliber, connect to your Kindle email. every Kindle has its own email, and then send it that way. But easiest option is just USB for Kindle at least.
Is it
For
just like
other
a mass
devices-
storage device when you plug it in?
Yes, Kindle will connect as a Kindle device or USB device, and then your Caliber will automatically detect the Kindle version also, like everything, the Kindle OS, Kindle device, everything, and you can optimize your Mobi or AZW3 format, whatever, to your specific Kindle device and screen size. So if you have any e-reader, you can convert ebooks for specifically that device with optimized settings.
Well, very cool. Yeah, I'll check that out. So I got that in the Calibre e-reader for next week.
Mhm.
Excellent. And thank you very much. That was a great suggestion. I liked it. Even if nobody else likes it, I think it's a great idea. So,
Hey, I went to the bookstore yesterday after a dinner date with the wife and some friends. So
did you
books are good.
what did you actually buy a book or?
We bought some for the kids, and we bought some Starbucks on our way home, and we held hands because it was a dinner date with books.
I
We like to read.
I like the
What was it?
smell, like the smell of books.
Mm.
Something about like
Old books or new books?
yes, it's not an either or. It's both. So
I have a candle here called the library. And
Oh.
it smells just like books. Like it literally smells like a library of leather books. It's my favorite scent in the world.
I
went to a library in Atlanta that just smelled like a homeless person.
what was Atlanta? Nothing against Atlanta.
A little musty from all the humidity. Mm.
Nate, one more fun fact. So the developer of Kitty Terminal and Calibre are the same.
What about the terminal?
You know Kitty? Kitty?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's the same developer.
So there is these books I got as a kid that I really liked. Was it Banicula? I don't know if you ever read these books. It was in the
Yeah, it's like
fourth.
a vampire bunny, like
Yeah.
sucks the life out of carrots and stuff.
Yeah, vegetables.
Yeah.
Anyway, like whenever I open this up and like flip through it, it takes me back to my however old I was when I read these. But I have the books that I bought. I saved it in like an old box that I made, and I really think these are some of the best books ever. I just let my kids. I don't want my kids to destroy these books. They can't read them. They probably would. They're not as conscientious about taking care of books as I am. Anyway, so yes, I like books. Books are fun to me. I love books. Yeah, by David Howe. Don knows. That's awesome. All right. Well, it is closing time, so I want to thank you all for being here. Steve is not doing a stream tomorrow. He's got himself a bug or something.
Under the weather.
Destination Linux is streaming live tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. Check that out. Linux User Space should have an episode dropping tomorrow, I believe, for patrons, and then Monday should be another episode. I didn't see it today in my feed, so maybe it'll be hitting tomorrow. I should have asked Dan and Leo ahead of time. Linux Out Loud is a podcast I'm a part of, and also the Matt who was here earlier and then skipped out of the saloon without paying his tab. He was not on the last episode, but Bill sure was. So, Bill, do you want to tell him a little bit about what we chatted about?
We talked about those nice things that you see online that you're like, oh, I should kind of help fund this. This looks like a cool project. But am I going to throw my money away or am I not?
It was a great talk, and kind of some reflection on whether or not we made good choices with our money in the past, or if we did make good choices. So yeah, check that out. It'll drop on Wednesday. Wendy's editing it because she's pretty awesome. I have a website called cubiclenate.com. I do things. A lot of times it's Linux related. Sometimes it's vintage tech related. Sometimes it's just a blathering. I want to thank you all for being part of the conversation in both the YouTube stream and on the Zoom meeting, as well as everyone for watching the show after the fact. I want to thank you all. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computers. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yas. Oh, I can't hear you. Uh-oh. Can't hear. Jinda, you're muted somehow.
It's not through Zoom.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
The chat's saying that we can only hear Nate.
Yeah, that's because I messed up. I had things the wrong thing muted locally. That's because I messed up. Here, wait. Well, let me fix this. How is everybody?
Been
We're
good.
good.
Excellent. All right, then I can edit that in.
They're saying
No.
they can hear everybody but Jinda.
Everybody but Jinda. It sounds like a game show.
Yeah.
Everybody but Jinda.
It's kind of like The Price is Wrong instead of The Price is Right. You sounded great earlier, Jinda.
I know. He's sounding pretty good.
He sounded like the best ever. You know,
Maybe we can play Password with Jinda. Try to guess what he's trying to say.
Is there a
Ooh,
mute
like,
button on his microphone that he needs to check?
Something in
I
his
don't think
system.
he's
I don't know.
muted to Zoom.
Something maybe pulse audio.
maybe we should put
It's always pulse audio.
yeah, or Pipewire now if you're running Pipewire. But Pipewire can't ever be at fault.
Yes, it can. I've learned this.
Okay.
I'll get into that later.
Let me throw in the stuff. Let's say fun with Pipewire. So I'll add that into the show notes here. Actually, we'll do that. We'll put that there. We'll put it on after the straw poll discussion. We will do that. Pipewire. How's it working for you?
Wire.
Should be fun.
Ubuntu finally shipped with Pipewire, right? This was the
Yes.
first release.
It did. So that's exciting. My understanding is it works pretty well. I still can't hear Jinda. Oh my goodness. It's Matt. But you're muted.
We're in real trouble now. Matt has joined us. I mean, what has the apocalypse began or something? Because
Nah.
Every once in a while he gets a free night, and I've missed him. I missed him this past Wednesday, which was kind of depressing, really. Like Bill is a great co-host, but he's not as mean and biting as Matt can be.
You'll get over the mean and biting at some point, Nate.
What do you mean over it? I don't want to get over it. I like it. Makes me feel like I'm still young and have brothers.
No comment.
I guess I need to turn up my mean part of personality now. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, so I got this nasty cough thing going on. Of course, because I muted myself again.
We can't hear you, Nate.
Gosh, I am losing it today.